G'day and welcome to Disc Golf Down Under. It's Matt here, and in this video I'm going to cover something that's a little bit difficult for new players and beginners to pick up. And that's the unwritten rules of disc golf, or what we commonly refer to as etiquette. Now, if you've never heard of the word etiquette before, it's defined as the customary code of polite behaviour amongst a particular group of people. And it's very big in most sports. If you've ever played traditional golf before, you'll know all about etiquette. So let's jump in and look at my top 20 unwritten rules that every disc golfer needs to know. Now, I'm not going to be covering the rules of golf, which is found in the book from the PDGA in this video. I'm going to leave that to a future series of videos, though some of the things that I will cover here are an extension of what you'll find in the rulebook. And you'll also find that much of the etiquette in disc golf comes from traditional golf. So if you've ever played golf before, most of these things won't be too foreign. Now, if you break the rules, you can be penalised. But if you break etiquette, you're not going to be penalised, but people won't want to play with you. So I'm going to split the etiquette up into two parts. I'm going to talk about my top 10 things that you always need to do, whether you're playing alone or in a group or in a competition. And I'm also going to look at the top 10 things that you need to do when you're playing in a group, and particularly in a competitive group. So let's jump in and start with the top 10 things that you always need to do when you're playing disc golf. Number 1, let faster players through. You know what it's like. You're out driving on the freeway or the highway and you're wanting to get to where you want to go, and there's someone driving in the fast lane blocking all the traffic. So just like when you're out on the disc golf course, if you can see someone coming up behind you that's moving a bit faster than you or your group, keep an eye on them. If they have to stop and wait for more than, say, a minute, at the next tee, just hold up, wait for them to come through and ask them if they want to play through. And 99% of players will take up the offer and play through. Note that this only applies to casual rounds. When you're in a competition, there is a rule, 802.02G, order of play, which says that you must remain in the order that you started. Number 2, don't throw unless it's safe to do so. So if there's absolutely any risk or chance of hitting anybody, don't throw. Either wait for the person to move out of the way, out of the road, or get their attention and make sure that they're ready for you to throw and jump out of the road if they need to. If you can't meet either of those requirements, skip the hole. If you have to, maybe have a chat to the person, give them an explanation of what disc golf's about and so on, so that next time they see you, they'll be ready to move on. Finally, if you've messed up and accidents do happen, and there's any chance that you might hit somebody, make sure you yell "for." That will give them a warning that something's coming their way, but make sure you do it as soon as possible. Don't wait till the very last second. People have a reaction time of about 2 to 3 seconds, so yell it as soon as you think there's going to be a problem. Number 3, respect other players' wishes. So where you can, try to grant the wishes of other players in your group or out on the course. So for example, a player might ask you to not stand in a particular location when they're throwing. For example, they may not like you standing directly behind them in their reach back or at some other location. Also, if you're a smoker, it's a good idea to ask the group before you light up. Number 4, look after the environment. So make sure you look after the course and the environment so that others can enjoy it too. This means no littering, no damaging of trees or branches, etc. If you see rubbish on the course, pick it up and take it with you. If the course needs a little bit of maintenance, make sure you volunteer to help out. So I always try to leave the course in a better condition than it was when I arrived. Number 5, obey park local rules or course rules. So if you're in an area with shared park users, be courteous and kind. If there's also local park rules, make sure you're aware of them and stick to them. For example, no drinking alcohol in some public parks, and if you break the rules, the course may get closed down. Also, if you're playing on a traditional golf course, get to know and obey the course rules. For example, if you're taking your cart out, make sure you stick to the cart paths and you don't drag your cart across greens, through bunkers or over tees. Also, if you throw your disc into a bunker, make sure you get the rake and rake the bunker flat when you're finished. Number 6, attempt to return lost discs. So if you do find a disc out on the golf course, look for a name and contact number on the disc and try to make contact with the person as soon as possible. If there aren't any details on the discs, well then have a look around, see who's playing at the time. Maybe it's somebody who's on the course who may have lost the disc. If you've still got no luck finding the person, you can try posting on the local club's Facebook page. And finally, if the club has a lost and found, you can drop the disc in there where people can have a look for it and hopefully claim it. If after a few weeks their disc is still unclaimed, then you can claim it as your own. But make sure you do write your name and your phone number on the back of your discs. It does make it so much easier for people to find them, and it is a requirement in competitive play that you have a unique mark on your discs. Number 7, don't jump in front of other groups out on the course. So if you turn up, maybe the course is busy, and you might decide that you want to start on a different hole. You might skip ahead. Just make sure you don't inconvenience other groups that are already playing. So for example, maybe the front nine's jammed, so you decide to go and start on the back nine on number 10. Just make sure that there's no one on number 9 coming up behind you, and that when you start on number 10, you're not going to slow them down. Number 8, keep your music at a reasonable volume. So a lot of disc golfers love their music and love to play music while they play. So if you're using Bluetooth speakers, make sure you keep the volume at an acceptable level. You don't want to annoy other players or members of the public. And if you like your music loud, stick to headphones or earbuds. And if playing in a group, ask the permission of the other card mates before you start playing your music. And think about what you're playing. Other people are not going to appreciate hearing highly explicit lyrics, especially if their kids are around. Number 9, have a good grip of the rules. Now, you don't need to be an expert, but it is highly recommended that you have an understanding of the main rules. There is a rulebook, the PDGA rulebook, and I'll also be putting out a series of videos on rules soon. So it's good to play the rules at all times, even when you're playing a casual round, so it helps develop good habits. So if you do it all the time, it becomes second nature. If you happen to break the rules when you're playing casual play and you do it all the time, it might be one of those things that gets you in a competition. And if you're going to play in a competitive league or tournament, a good understanding of the basic rules is a must. And there's a lot to learn, so if you're in doubt, ask. Number 10, represent disc golf. A good majority of disc golf is played in public parks, shared with other members of the public. So for many, it may be the first time they've seen disc golf, so make sure you represent the sport in the best light. So think about your dress, how you behave, and don't be an and keep a handle on the language. Sure, you might let an expletive rip after a bad shot, but just make sure you don't carry on like a drongo. It doesn't matter how much you swear, yell, scream, or get upset, you can't change your last shot. Learn from it and move on. So that's the top 10 things that you need to know pretty much all the time when you're out on the disc golf course. And now we're going to move on to the top 10 things you need to know when you're playing in a group. Number 11, don't distract other players. So when other players are throwing or putting, there should be no talking, no moving, and don't stand too close to the other players. Basically, or bottom line, you don't want to be a distraction. So especially when someone is putting, you don't want to stand directly behind them or on the opposite side of the basket in their eye line. So you'll see in pro tournaments, the pros will freeze, they'll stop in their place while someone's putting or throwing, and that also applies to people on other holes. So if someone's about to drive, then just pause and wait for them to throw. So also make sure you turn your mobile phone to silent. There's nothing worse than getting a phone call mid-throw. Number 12, be ready to go when it's your turn. So make sure you're ready to throw when it's your turn to throw. This doesn't mean you have to rush your shot. The rules do give you 30 seconds from when it's your turn, and you can still go through your pre-shot or your warm-up routine or whatever it is that you do, but it's not cool to be out of position and moving slowly to your disc. Nobody likes playing with a slow player. Number 13, wait before you compliment a throw. So it's a good idea to wait until the shot lands and settles before you compliment the player. I'm sure you've seen it where someone throws a perfect shot, through the air, but something crazy happens at the last second. It deflects off a tree, gets an air bounce, hits a root, gets up and rolls OB. Some players actually get superstitious about being niced. They think that if somebody compliments them before the disc has landed, that they'll get bad luck and the disc will end up in a worse spot. Number 14, honours on the tee. The honours system says that the person who scored the lowest on the previous hole throws first on the next tee. If there was a tie, you throw in the same order as the previous hole. You might hear this as you've got the box. And this is actually a rule in competitive play. It's rule 802.02b, but it's actually a good habit to follow even during casual play, as it's a sign of respect to the player who won the previous hole. Honours dates back a long way in traditional golf and has passed on to other forms of golf as well, including disc golf. Number 15, ask before giving advice. So in this one, we've all been there. We've thrown a bad shot and then somebody in the background pipes up with some tip or hint or some obscure advice to fix your problem. It's good practice to ask the other person first if they'd like a tip or advice before you offer it. Most people will say yes, but sometimes people aren't ready for criticism. Also, if you give too much helpful advice, it can come across the wrong way. Instead of being helpful, you're basically sending the message to the other player that they suck. Number 16, furthest from the basket first. So this one comes from traditional golf as well and is covered under rule 802.02c. After teeing off, the person furthest from the target or the basket is the player who throws next. We call this the away player. So it's good etiquette not to walk in front of the away player, as it can be distracting to them and it may affect the way the thrower throws. The only exception to this might be if you're close to the basket and the next player is not ready to throw or putt yet, so you can quickly go up, grab your disc and drop it into the basket. Number 17, clear the basket after finishing. So after you've finished the hole and the disc is sitting in the bottom of the basket or in the chains, make sure you immediately go and retrieve your disc, so the next person has an empty basket to work with. It is rare, but sometimes discs will trampoline or bounce off discs that are sitting in the basket, and you don't want that to happen. Also, if necessary, make sure that the basket's ready for the next person to putt. So make sure the chains are set, or if it's one of those baskets that's hanging from a tree, that it's not swinging. Number 18, watch other players' discs. So make sure you watch where other players throw and where their discs go. In tournament play, it's your job to act as a referee to ensure other players follow the rules. And if you're not watching, then you won't be able to make a call if someone calls a player for a rules violation. So it helps to watch the disc and what's going on in case the player loses track of the disc, and then you can help search for it. 8 eyes are always better than 2. Number 19, help others look for lost discs. So if another player can't find their disc, go and help them look for it. They'll appreciate it, and hopefully someday you'll appreciate it when they return the favour. More eyes can cover a wider area faster, and in a competition, in a tournament, it's actually a rule, rule 805.03b, that requires you to actively search for a lost disc. And let's wrap it up with number 20, limit groups to no more than 5. So if the course is busy, try to limit your group size to 4 and definitely no more than 5. Large groups move slower and hold up groups behind. And this brings us back to number 1, always keep an eye behind you and let the faster groups behind you play through. So that's it for my top 20 unwritten rules that every disc golfer needs to know. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please like the video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know if there's any major things that I missed, or if there's any particular things that you might do in your area or at your club. Thanks for watching, good luck out on the disc golf course, and we'll catch you in the next one.